New York City is the destination for street photography. I'm lucky enough to live fairly close, so it's my best place to go to practice film photography. I'm still a beginner with film with only 3 rolls shot before this trip. I have gotten better with exposure, but almost all my compositions so far are either just bad or just mediocre. So that's the real area I need to improve. I brought along 3 rolls of film for a 2-day trip to the city, and I shot this with the Leica MP and my new 28mm Elmarit lens f2.8. I took these photos 2 weeks ago, but I'm just now getting the results. Opening the email with these scans is just like opening a surprise birthday gift. You never know what you're going to get or how the exposures have come out. I tried to carry the very least amount possible, so this is all I had with me. The camera across the shoulder, a small shoulder bag to hold my keys, extra film, AirPods, charger, cables, and my DJI Osmo Pocket 3. In my pocket I had my wallet, glasses, iPhone 14 Pro with the battery pack, and this gave me all-day battery life. The Leica MP feels great to shoot with. It's made from brass, so it's very solid feeling, but even with the camera case on, it's very small and compact. The camera is just a tool to bring together the lens and the film, but the way this camera is built, it just feels like a luxurious experience shooting with this camera. And the 28mm Elmarit lens sits perfectly on the camera body. The lens itself is very small, so it does its job and it stays out of the way. It doesn't attract attention, and there's no worries about bumping it up against anything or damaging the front element. I stopped down the lens down to f8 most of the time, so I felt like the 2.8 maximum aperture was plenty wide enough for me on this trip. For my first roll of film, I had the Fujifilm 400 already loaded into the camera, and this should be good for a variety of situations. Outdoor cloudy or partly cloudy, and maybe some indoors. And this should also give some realistic photos and color representation. And right away, stepping out of Penn Station, it looks like I stepped into an Asian food festival. The 28mm focal length is a good lens for tight situations like this, but I still don't feel comfortable enough getting extremely close to people. Here are some of the results from the first location. All of these photos are completely unedited from the scans I received, and that shows how well the developer processed these images. The exposure is good, and I did overexpose from the light meter 1 full stop. The colors are realistic, but the images still have that filmic look. This composition was not great because the pole was right in front of his face, and I was focusing more in on the food. And I didn't have any immediate feedback from a digital screen, so if I had my digital camera, I could have corrected this composition for the next shot. But I liked this result, a typical street photograph with the 2 subjects in the middle off to the left, and a bright yellow accents of color off to the right. Heading away from that area, it starts to get quieter and much less busy. I was able to stop in at the new Leica store in the meatpacking district. It's a small store inside, but it's a nice looking with a separate area as a gallery. And they will let you try out any of their lenses that they have on for sale, either on your own camera or one of their digital cameras. And this is a photo with my Leica MP using one of their 50mm Noctilux f1.2. And this was shot wide open at f1.2, and it shows a really nice background separation. But now I'm almost out of film, so I'm heading over to the hotel to reload the camera. And I liked how this image shows a modern scene with a touch of vintage character because of the film. And the 28mm lens is nice and wide enough to set the scene, and is able to fit in a lot into the image. Another tactile feature of this camera is manually rewinding the film and loading a fresh new roll. I'm still very bad at loading new film. I followed the instructions according to the Leica manual as directed, but I still end up wasting 4 to 5 shots when I load the film. I saw someone else on YouTube who was using the rewind knob to tighten up the film, and he ended up only using 2 shots to load the film. So I think I'll try that next time. For my second roll, I'm using Portra 800. I'm going up on the ISO to 800 so I can take some low light photographs in the evening. This area in front of the New York City Library looks like a good place to take photographs of people walking by. There's a lot of people walking down the streets, and there's also a lot of other tourists taking pictures of their own. But this is the only usable image I got from this location. And nearby is Rockefeller Center, so I looked around here and I did like some of the photographs that I got from this location. Just a word about this lens. I tested out this 28mm Elmarit on my M11, and this is an extremely sharp lens. I shot most of these images on f8 or f11, and in case it doesn't look like it, these images are in focus and they are sharp, but they are not as sharp as they would be on a digital M11. So to me, shooting on film is not about sharpness or critical focus. It's okay to be a little bit soft. It's more about the colors and the character of the images that come out on film. It's all about the challenges of the manual settings, manual focus, and doing everything right, but still getting an imperfect image. And I'm handicapped even further by not getting immediate feedback on the composition by looking at a digital screen. Film photography is not for everyone, but I think it's a refreshing change from digital photography. And I think this roll of Portra 800 has a slightly more vintage character compared to the Fujifilm 400. Somehow the colors and the contrast of these images look like they could have been made 40 years ago. They remind me of some of the images that I've seen from the early 1980s on old photographs or even old television. So that's the biggest benefit of shooting film, in my opinion. It looks like a vintage photograph. You could get a similar result from a digital photograph in using presets, but the film image just looks more natural. These two images from the afternoon had very harsh lighting, but the exposure still came out well. So I'm very happy with how the developer processed these images. After dinner, it's getting dark and it's getting late, so I'm wondering if I should just stop here for the day. But Times Square is very close to the hotel, and I told myself I would never return to Times Square. Then I decided I might as well give it a try and go back to the crazy house of Times Square and see how some of the film photographs would come out in this situation. But I ended up getting mixed results and not any keepers. I finished up the second roll that night, and in the morning I loaded up my third roll, Kodak Gold 200. I didn't choose this role for any specific reason. It's just something I had multiple roles of at home. I'm only staying half of the day on Sunday, so I really need to work on my composition and try to get some good shots. On Sunday morning, I did feel like the city was slowing down and it did feel a little bit more peaceful. I like the color of the bright red tour bus here on the left, but the building on the right was slightly washed out. I liked the scene here with the couple crossing the street on the left and the two people walking in opposite directions on the right in front of the coffee house, which you could also see in through the windows. But those elements were spaced just too far apart, and it would have been better if these elements were located closer to each other. An empty outdoor cafe and an empty outdoor carousel on an early Sunday morning. This painting in the background was an interesting backdrop on the street, and I could have waited here longer for some more people to walk by. Here's a classic view of the Flatiron building, which looks like it's under repairs, but the 28 millimeters was just wide enough to get the whole building in one view. And the final two images are just some regular street photographs. And this may be one of my favorite street scenes over the weekend that was frozen by my camera. The single man crossing the street on the right, the two delivery bikes waiting on the left, the flowers on the extreme left, and the restaurant hidden behind the construction materials. Thanks for watching to the end. I'll finish off with breakfast at Bryant Park, and let me know in the comments how I can improve my film photography and what you would like to see in the future.